they know it's going to collapse. Actually, when you look at the banking system and the balance sheets on their financial summaries, it's already collapsed, but nobody knows it. They're just continuing to pretend like it's still working, and they're pumping money into the economy so fast. It's ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind, certainly in the banking industry, nobody dreams or even claims that these debts are going to be repaid. They cannot be repaid. The system is broken, and as I said before, eventually it's going to collapse. So now we come to the question, when is it going to collapse? Well, it's collapsing right now, if it hasn't already, and the banks are leading it. They want it to collapse. Now, isn't that an interesting, funny thing for me to say? Why would the banks want their banking system to collapse? And the answer is very simple, because they have something better in mind, at least better for them. And that won't involve the old traditional use of money at all. Money will disappear as we have known it. They have this thing called the central bank digital currencies, which is something they will control. It won't be your money or mine, it's their money. We'll be allowed to use it if we obey their dictates, and they'll have complete control over us. This is why they are crashing the banking system now, because they want the dollar to collapse, so that people will be desperate, and they'll be looking to the same people that caused the problem to create a solution to the problem. And people will be so desperate they'll accept anything, including this horrible thing called central bank digital currencies.
Let's talk about all of this, the U.S. economy and policy, with FedEx founder and executive chairman, Fred Smith. Fred, thanks for coming back. Special report.
Thank you, Brett. Our financial capabilities to print money at will is dependent on the dollar remaining the reserve currency. And the so-called BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have set out on a deliberate course to dethrone the dollar. If that happens and we can't sell our bonds, I can assure you the living standards that we all enjoy today are going to be a thing of the past.
A good two-way communication system, direct communication system between brains and computers, this is kind of the watershed moment. I mean, once you have a good two-way, nobody has any idea what happens after that. If you have a good two-way communication system directly between brains and computers, it also means you can connect several brains together to create an inter-brain net because it's the same system, the same communication system. And nobody has any idea what this means for things like identity. Who am I when I can access directly the brain of another person?
I wanted to bring up and go back to your point about dehumanization, because I've seen other interviews where you've said this is what they're trying to do. The elites are trying to convert humans into robots so that they will do what they were told, not capable of disobeying or disagreeing. I think this is what we're up to. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Mr. Griffin, what do you mean? Convert us into robots? Explain.
Well, what is a robot? A robot is a machine. I guess you could start with that. Whether it's a mechanical machine or a biological machine, depending on how you define machine, it's something that has its own internal energy, and it does things in accordance with a goal and a method and a plan and so forth. And robots are robots, but we think of them in terms of our comic book depiction as being made of metal, but a robot could be a biological robot. In fact, some people say that we are actually robots, that we were created. I want to not worry about how we were created, because that's a big controversial topic, but the fact is that we were created through some process and some intelligence. A great deal of design and engineering went into us, and we're self-propelling, we're self-fueling, we repair each other. Anyway, we have goals and so forth. So it might be considered that we are already robots, but I don't look at it that way. But the point is that we're talking here about dehumanizing what used to be humans and getting control of their central nervous system and their brains and even their muscles, and determining how they act and what they think, how they feel. And you addressed a very important point, which is what these elitists are really hoping for, I believe, is to create a subcategory, a subspecies of the human being, where the mentality has been altered in such a way that they will become totally passive. They will do what they're told, and as you said, they will not complain. They won't be incapable of questioning authority. They just say, I'm here to serve, and that's it. I think that's what they want to create. And of course, they have the other agenda, which is to prolong their own lifespan in some way so that they could live forever, or at least a great deal longer than anybody else. So it's weird. It's like a science fiction story.
Humans are now hackable animals. Hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, this, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over.
That's over.
Over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance. So let's do it.
Vaccine won't help us go
The
to the
vaccine
test, of course.
will help us, of course. It will make things, you know, more manageable. Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin. I mean, COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, even in democratic countries, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
China and Brazil have completed their first bilateral trade using local currency. The move joins a host moving away from the US dollar and a shift of the global economic balance.
Of our currency, I'm talking about our currency being used throughout the world.
You want it to remain. You want the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency.
Well, I think it's bigger than losing any war. I think if it doesn't, look, we are already reverting to third world status in many ways. You look at our airports, you look at our terminals, you look at our filthy roads and broken roads and everything else. We're like a third world country. We have something that's very powerful, and that's our dollar all over. But you take a look at what's happening to it now with other countries not using it. And you know, China wants to replace it with the yuan. And it was unthinkable with us. Unthinkable. Would never have happened. Now people are thinking about it. That could happen.
BRICS nations have the oil, they have their natural resources. They don't have to put up with it. And they're not going to put up with it. And remember, 2/3 of those hombres are not buddies, not friends of this constitutional republic we have. They're our enemies or rubbing up on our enemies.
The BRICS group is set to introduce a new currency backed by gold, in contrast to the credit-backed US dollar, with countries lining up to join the growing initiative.
The BRICS countries are planning to introduce a new trading currency which will be backed by gold.
I don't like anything that can be printed.
Now, the BRICS nations, again, to repeat, for everybody who's hearing this for the first time, you might hear about the BRICS nations. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, Africa. Those comprise roughly 41% of the Earth's population, and they are teaming up together to unseat the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. And now you have Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela, Algeria, Turkey, and Argentina all teaming up to unseat the U.S. dollar as the world's U.S.
You're on it, man. You're on it. You're on it. Everybody, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. You have the macro picture. Very few people have that point of view. And the Great Reset will be the collapse of the dollar.
China and Brazil have completed their first bilateral trade using local currency. The move joins a host of other countries moving away from the US dollar and a shift of the global economic balance. According to the Bank of China, the transaction marks a milestone in trade relations between Beijing and Brasilia after a deal was reached in April. The new process of using the Chinese yuan in exchange for the Brazilian real is set to open doors for companies to expand business.
What's going to happen? How long can we keep this up, Andy? How long can people keep taking this piece of garbage here that we print at will?
I don't think much longer at all. I mean, look, just in this year alone, the BRICS countries have offloaded $123 billion in U.S. treasuries. China and Brazil and India, the United Arab Emirates, all of our supposed allies of the past, well, minus China, but we had a good relationship with them for a long time. They're dumping the bonds, and there are countries that are working very hard to strike deals with one another outside the dollar. And as we continue to print at a pace that is unsustainable, while rates are going higher, we are putting such strain on the entire system. The whole system's going to be dragged down, and maybe that's what they're intending to do. But maybe that's why. And it's not just the wealthiest traders in the world, that being the central banks, it's the most sophisticated and well-informed, continue to buy gold at a pace that the world has never seen over the last 18 months, more than they have ever seen. And every month, it's bigger than the last. They know what's coming.
And tonight I'm also making another promise to protect Americans from government tyranny. As your president, I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. You know about that?
Immediate reaction is, I think there's some more education needed in the marketplace. I think there's a lot of discussion around a CBDC, what it is, what it isn't. Is it the government going to be spying on citizens? All this kind of thing. So I think there's a education required. At the end of the day, I think the federal government, trumps state governments in this. But I think really, I don't think the citizens have anything to be concerned about. CBDC is a digital representation of fiat currency. It's likely to get implemented in pretty much every country around the world. It's coming. There are going to be some great advantages to it, great use cases that will, people will get benefit from. So I see news like that. I think, okay, well, this will probably disappear when people get a bit smarter, a bit more educated about what's really going to happen.
The one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it as a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC, and I think also extremely dangerous for central banks. Because ultimately, if you have different units of central bank money with different characteristics, or if you use central bank money as a conduit for economic policies in a very targeted way, or more broadly for social policies, that could really affect the integrity of central bank money and the integrity and independence of central banks. So there are wonderful notions of things that can be done with digital money. But again, I fear that technology could take us to a better place, but equally has the potential to take us to a pretty dark place.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability.
The nature of money is going to change quite dramatically. The old systems of trust and of ownership will have to adapt radically.
CBDC. If that happens, we're done.
And so my question to you today for this Rich Dad Radio show, this is fake money. Believe it or not, this is fake money. It looks like a Kennedy $50, but if you lift it up this way, it's fake. It's copper. This started in 1964. This little fake $50 is now worth $10, but it's fake. This here is real silver. It's about $35. Not that much. Everybody can afford $35. And this here is real gold. And I strongly, we don't give investment advice, but right now I would do my best to get your head out of you know what and stop working hard and saving this stuff here. This is fake. This is fake. This is real. And this is real. Good luck to you all. Start going for real money, not fake money. Thank you.